Hi, welcome to Music Theory with Ras. So why learn music theory? Whatever instrument you play, guitar, bass, piano, even drums, there will be a benefit to learning some music theory, be it expressing your ideas to other musicians, learning new melodies or rhythms, or even finding the next chord in a song you are composing or learning. I believe anybody can learn to read music, well, as long as you're familiar with the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A to G, and can count to about 13. So assuming you meet those challenging prerequisites, let's move on to some learning. You will see the notes displayed on the staves there on the left. The squiggly clef at the top is called a treble clef or G clef, because the clef kind of starts by circling the line that is a G note. The bottom clef is a bass clef or F clef, since it starts on the line that is an F note. Let's hear the notes. I chose to start on an A since we're all familiar with A to G. So there are all the notes. I've put numbers underneath so we can see the note's relationship to the starting point or root as it is called, which in this case, as I said, is A. You may notice that some of the numbers are crossed out. That's because we basically don't use those numbers. The 8th note is simply the beginning of another octave, which is another set of 7 notes. The 10th, 12th and 14th always function as a 3rd, 5th and 7th respectively. The 2nd, 4th and 6th can also function or be referred to as a 9th, 11th and 13th. We'll discuss why at a later time. But what about the sharps and flats? One of the most complicated things in music theory, in my opinion, is that notes can have different names. I had a friend we called Jack. His name was Stephen. All his mates called him Jack. His mother and the government called him Stephen. Same fella, but his name was different depending on the situation. It's kind of like that with music. Same note, but different name depending on the circumstances. The missing notes from the chart, all the black notes on the piano, the sharps and flats. These notes all have at least 2 possible names, like my mate Jack, but they will still be A to G. They are simply sharpened or flattened versions of A to G, where they will be either called sharps, like A sharp, C sharp, D sharp, or be called flats, A flat, B flat, D flat. B sharp and C flat? Well, they do exist. To sharpen a note, we raise it by a semitone or half step, which is 1 key on a piano and 1 fret on a guitar. To flatten a note, we simply lower it by a semitone. So if you play a B sharp, you'd actually hit a C note, and a C flat would be a B. The same is true for E and F. You can see that some of the numbers now have a sharpened or flattened status. All that means is the note has been raised or lowered by 1 half step, semitone, fret, key. Let's condense this information down so we can see it all in 1 octave, since that's all we really need. The letters A to G and the numbers 1 to 13 encompass all the notes and their possible functions. This chart starts with the root of A. However, since there are 12 different notes, there are 12 possible starting points. Each one will give the notes a different function. This relates to key signatures and scales, which we will get into at a later date. But for now, scales basically consist of 7 notes. The 8th note being the octave where we will start the pattern again. The 7 notes will be A to G, with some or all of them being either sharp or flat. So even though there are 12 different pitches within the octave, we essentially pick 7 of the 12 when we select a key to play in. We will cover this in another lesson. For now, we're simply looking at a chromatic scale, which is all the notes. Let's pick a random starting point and see how it affects things. 12. That'll be A flat. Let's have a listen. You may notice I've called the flat 2 B double flat and not A. Well, firstly, it is what it says on the tin. B flattened twice. Believe it or not, it is easier that way. If we look at the notes and numbers, you will see that once again we have 1 to 13 and A to G. Why we call the A note B double flat is again to do with scales and key signatures, which we will cover later, along with intervals, chord structures, rhythms. There is a lot to learn, but let's just take this one step at a time. So let's have a look starting on a sharp letter now. Here we see a similar naming issue with the sharp 5, C double sharp. The flat 6 is D. This is because the 5th is C sharp and the 6th is D sharp. So if we apply the rules, a sharpened 5th would be C double sharp and a flattened 6th would be D. Same note, different situations. The same is true of the flat 3 and the sharp 9th. The flat 3 is an A, but the sharp 9th is G double sharp. As I said before, we will get into why in another lesson. So that about wraps it up for this lesson on notes. Please feel free to ask any questions or share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll try to answer them directly or in a future video. For homework, I've included a link to a blank chart for you to fill out yourself in other keys. Or, if you're feeling lazy, there is a link to purchase a PDF of the charts completed in every key. 15 different keys. Yes, 15. Why 15? Well, that's for the next video about keys and scales. As you can probably see, this is a new channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button and subscribe to help this channel grow. You could also ring the bell so you'll be notified when a new lesson is released. In the meantime, have a great day.